Before I had kids, I was writing 2 books a year, but I also had no social life. I was basically Gollum in my little writing cave, she tells Jenna. For all working parents, it's a tough thing to have a job. You need to show up and focus on the job, but then to also be able to focus on your children. Make sure they feel loved and safe and important in your life. And my kids bring me the most joy. When I sit down with Moss after her discussion with Jenna, I ask her about pioneering the romantasy genre. She might just be the queen of romantasy, I say. This makes her cackle. I'm deeply honored that anyone would call me queen of anything, considering I spend most of my days covered in the fluids of my children, she says. But I think it is so wonderful that people have become aware of the joys of romance and fantasy all in one. That's what I grew up loving to read. It's what I always wanted to write. The following section has spoilers for the Crescent City series and its latest book, House of Flame and Shadow. Skip to the next section of this story to avoid. Many SJM fans say that her romantasies are a majestic merger of this trio. The poetic romanticism of a Taylor Swift album, the extraordinary world-building of the Harry Potter series, and the jaw-dropping crossovers of the Marvel movies. Fans of Moss exist on a spectrum. On one end are people who appreciate her exciting stories in a casual way. At the middle are folks more intrigued and perhaps currently on a journey through SJM's catalog. And at the far end are those deeply obsessed with these books. Can you guess which end of the spectrum I fall? It is so wonderful that people have become aware of the joys of romance and fantasy all in one. That's what I grew up loving to read. Sarah J. Moss. For those on that far end, the Easter eggs are everything. Placed in her books are little winks at people, places and things from her other franchises. Initially those little winks seem just that, little winks. But then, in 2022, came the cliffhanger ending of the book Moss last published, the second in the Crescent City series called House of Sky and Breath, when its heroine is dropped into the ACOTAR world. It set up a crossover event for Moss' next book and, with it, readers reopening the case of whether the author had been plotting this all along. I had to probe Moss about her planning process. For several years early on, I just idly loved the idea of little pieces from these worlds overlapping a little bit, Moss says. It wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago that I had this idea out of the blue. What if I took that to the next level? What if someone just went to another world? What would that be like? And once I had that idea, I saw the ending of House of Sky and Breath. Writing it was so emotional. I was a mess, she says, and the real ones get it. It cannot be understated just how much of a big deal that ending was.